It's just a little after 1, so we're going to go ahead and get started. And so good afternoon to everyone. We are very excited to see the level of interest in this discussion. So thank you for joining us. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Dan Storrs, the Senior Director for K-12 Engagement at the Link Learning Alliance. And I'm joined by Renita Guha, the Vice President for Strategy and Impact, who will be moderating with me this afternoon.
Hi,
so
everybody.
It's been an interesting, oh, Renita, sorry, do you want to say hello?
Hi.
It's been an interesting few weeks, and so really appreciate you taking the time to join this afternoon. There's so much that's unclear, and that's evident by the amount of interest there was in having this conversation today. And it really is meant to be a conversation. We want to hear from you. I know you guys want to hear from each other to find out how people are thinking about this, thinking about delivering online learning, getting up quickly, doing it in a linked learning environment, and doing it with equity and purpose in a way that serves all of your students equally. I want to thank you all for being here today, and again, look forward to hearing your comments. I know that you've been working hard to get the equipment ready and distributed and out to students, software up and running, curriculum resources, some of you training teachers, teachers training yourselves, all sorts of things. And I also know that everybody's been inundated recently with resources, well-meaning, lots of people jumping in, organizations with resources to share. But that comes with its own set of questions about how you make sense of that all and how you apply it in your specific context. And so we want to kind of delve into a lot of that today, and particularly, again, in the linked learning context. So we are going to kind of organize our questions around the linked learning standards, and specifically have some discussions around the integrated program of study, work-based learning, and then very importantly these days, student supports. So that'll be the general kind of outline of our conversation today. So also, we want you to be able to connect with each other. Hopefully today you'll kind of hear some things that will make you want to explore some new networks, talk with some folks out there that you meet today, that will help you move forward with your work. So that is one of the goals for this afternoon. And please remember that this is an open dialogue. So it's kind of an interesting experience having to have an open dialogue and conversation with many people on Zoom. So I'm going to go through with you some of the protocols that we're going to use today to help keep this conversation useful and keep it flowing and give everybody a chance for their voices to be heard. So first of all, we will be recording the session. So for anybody out there, you want to share this with folks, it'll be available afterwards. You want to go back and hear something that somebody said, you can do so. And please note that everybody is automatically muted upon entering. And so please, we ask you to stay muted, and then just unmute yourself when you're making a call, and put yourself back on mute afterwards, so that we're speaking kind of one person at a time. So to offer response, ask a question, just what you need to do is click on the participant button, so at the bottom of your screen where it says participants, and that'll open up a panel to the right of your screen. And then hopefully when you see that, you'll see on the bottom right, you'll see a button that allows you to raise your hand. So when you do want to speak, if you could just press the raise hand button, and then I will call on folks, at which point you would unmute yourself and offer a comment. Okay. Let's see. If you're joining by phone, you can press *9 to raise your hand, and you can press *6 to mute and unmute yourself. So for those of you who are joining by phone. If you have additional questions for the group, you can also enter them in the chat box. So we will be monitoring the chat box as well. So feel free to use that as a venue for your questions. And also, if you're having any technical issues, please kind of put those concerns in the chat box as well. All right, so I know that's a lot, but they were also, all those directions I just gave were just entered into the chat box as well, so you can see them there. All right, so with that, we are going to go ahead and get started. And so the question, how do you provide an engaging online experience with accountability and assessment built in? So we're going to focus on that area of the integrated program of study first. And specifically, three high-level questions, and then of course you can jump in with your specific questions. How do we ensure student-centered learning, peer-to-peer connections, and relevant and timely feedback are continued to be provided for students? Second, how can we continue to provide opportunities for students' demonstration of learning, specifically senior portfolio defenses and capstone projects? And kind of the third big question in this area is, how can we provide opportunities that are connected to what students have been learning, appropriately tied to standards and to pathway and/or graduate outcomes? So those are the big kind of conversation starters here. And so I'd like to just throw it out there to address kind of one of those questions in terms of both. I think what everybody would like to hear is kind of both what people are doing, how you're thinking about these questions, how you might be initially starting to address them, and any more detailed questions that you have regarding this. So I'm just going to kind of open that up to the group and allow someone to feel free to kind of raise your hand and kind of get us started in the conversation. So I'm gonna leave it there for just a second. All right, Rebecca. Could you, when you unmute yourself, could you just kind of quickly introduce yourself to the group? Thanks.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. It's great to see everyone, some familiar faces and new faces. I'm Rebecca Lecoq, and I'm the Linked Learning Director in Oakland Unified. And I really appreciate this space. So thank you, Dan and Renita and others for enabling it. I think what I actually want to say is we're not starting where I think we maybe thought we would, but we're really looking at the students' basic needs, because what we're finding is that in a lot of our schools, the percent of parents that have already lost their jobs and who don't have enough food is very high. And so one thing that we've been doing is working through our cost teams that are already existing at the school sites, which are all on the comprehensive student support side. But before we even kind of get to instruction and trying to differentiate in all these pieces, we're really looking at through the cost structure the schools have developed spreadsheets. They're triaging really to contact all students in grades 9 through 12, and then they're sort of tracking and tiering interventions according to what's needed. So for example, Intel funds some of our work, and we've pivoted and made an ask to Intel to allow us to use all of our carryover funds to buy Safeway gift certificates, Wi-Fi sticks for families that don't have access to Wi-Fi, and Chromebooks. Because, you know, our first entry point was something a little different. It was contracting with Nepris, it was contracting with Y, it was like getting these online platforms in place, which we've done, and that's great, and teachers are engaging. But when we started hearing back from schools, it was this thing of, you know, thank you, and we will engage with this, but what we really need is help making sure that our families stay on the grid, and don't start going outside more than they need to, because we've started to see some of that in Oakland, you know, young people in particular going out when they really shouldn't be. So I just wanted to offer that as an entry point, because it's really been important to me as a linked learning director to hear that the top need is actually very basic. And then a lot of my role in Oakland is to do resource development and resource management. And so I've been working with some of the funders to try to just see if we can get them, and so far they've been very, very open to it, to just shifting their funding to just keeping everyone afloat at this time. So I just wanted to offer that as a starting point.
Yep.
And I'll mute myself.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, that's a really important point. I think that's probably where everybody is kind of starting. I mean, so no matter what you're going to do, you got to first make sure that the kids are equipped, are safe, and in a safe space, and then equipped to be able to do the work. So I'd be interested in hearing from other folks, especially other districts, how you have tackled that, whether you think that was that is something that's being taken care of. And also it brings up the question of who takes care of that, like Rebecca, what you were just describing. I mean, do you feel like in your district that's something that is being taken care of by someone else? Do you feel like you need to take it upon yourself or your department or your school site, or as possibly as a teacher or a pathway lead to do it yourself? I'd be interested in just to hear from folks what you're thinking about that, or how that's happening in your district. Yes, I see it says S Dow. Not sure who that is, but if you want to unmute yourself and introduce yourself.
I am Sophia. I work with LAUSD, and for my site, we've been working administratively as well as through volunteers with teachers to try and get laptops out to students. But a lot of our sites are, we just don't have enough laptops. So a lot of our students still are without, and so that's something that we're struggling with, definitely. But I'm glad to say that we do have a lot of food banks out in our districts that students can come and get food if they, you know, rely on school food in order to get fed.
Do you feel that do you feel like things are on hold until you feel like those questions and situations have been taken care of? Do you feel like it's sort of a parallel track where you're also working on, like, what's the curriculum, what's the delivery going to look like at the same time that stuff's happening?
It's definitely parallel. We're working on both trying to get laptops and, you know, technology out to students, as well as trying to figure out a curriculum. We're working out curriculum through our school site, and we've been having lots and lots of meetings of trying to figure that out, trying to figure out if we're going to go through and have like specific schedule for students to meet up with teachers, or to have specific times for Zoom meetings for specific content. And we're trying to, you know, figure that out at the moment.
So I would love to hear from someone else how, I would imagine that's the question for a lot of people, and I would love to hear from some of the other district folks how, if they've like come to any sort of decision points around that. I know, for example, just before the call, I'm gonna pick on Duane from Antelope Valley, and maybe any of the Antelope Valley folks, who were saying that they've been on vacation and they're starting on Monday. So on next Monday, they're going to start delivery. So as you've been thinking about starting up on Monday, in terms of, so those were some good questions around just logistically how that looks at the certain times. What have you kind of what's your experience and what are you planning for? I do see a hand raised from Vince Warsaw. If you want to chime in, that'd be great.
Okay. Hello, everybody. My name is Vince Warsaw. I'm a teacher at Arroyo Valley High School in the San Bernardino Unified School District. I'm a parent and a teacher in the district, so I see both ends of the spectrum. So what our district has done for our students and what we've done to provide information for our students is the teachers, we collaborated and prepared lessons for 2 weeks of instruction for after our spring break. What they did is they collaborated, we compiled that information, put it onto a Google Drive, and what our office staff did for our students is that they created packets for our students and sent out the information to our students. The reason why I know that this has worked is because my children, my wife went to the P.O. box today and a packet came in the mail for our students with resources that the teachers have provided for our students so that they can be engaged and work on the information, with information at home. Also, our district has been constantly making contact with our students, with our families through phone calls. On our district website, there's resources that our students can go to that have been compiled by teachers and by district staff to keep our students engaged and working while they're at home. And so that's what some of the things I've seen our district do and some of the things that we've been doing to provide our students with access to information as they're at home. And as everybody is going through the same situation of having to stay at home, providing ways that they can still be engaged and utilize resources at a cost where it's not really punitive to them, but it's still information to keep their minds going and keep their minds active in lines with the curriculum that they've been receiving throughout this time of the school year. So that's what we've been doing.
Thanks, Vince. Duane, do you want to comment on that?
Yes, thank you, Dan. Actually, I had a question, a follow-up question for Vince. I was wondering, the packets that his district sent out, is that the primary instructional packet, or is anything online as well?
Both. So the packets were sent out because we know that all students don't have access to technology. But students so the teachers in our CTE department, we also placed information on our Google Classroom that the students that do have technology, they can access the information online as well. So we didn't want to leave out students who didn't have access to technology from receiving the material, but then if students did have technology, they also have that platform to use it as well.
Okay. Thank you, Vince.
Thank you. Ruben, you want to chime in and maybe introduce yourself?
Yes, hello everybody. My name's Ruben Aburto. I'm an assistant principal in LA Unified School District, and without question, our district is huge, and so the I guess the path that every school is taking is slightly different. I know that there's quite a range in terms of what students are getting based on school, but even within our own our pathway, we've started looking at some data in terms of like Schoology usage, for example, and we see a broad spectrum. So we have some kids who have not logged on at all in 10 days. We have kids who have logged on multiple times and are keeping up with work. So we've obviously been digging into some of the reasons why that's occurring. And a lot of it has to do with access or the lack thereof to either internet service or a device. And we've been working to do that. I think, like other folks have said, it's kind of a parallel path in terms of addressing that issue, but also addressing the social emotional needs that have started to surface as anxiety levels continue to increase. Just the issue of having food on the table. So I know we've been distributing thousands of meals every day at our school site. We've also have been working to provide professional development for our staff to kind of bring them speed with the various different platforms that are available to us, and as well as establishing an expectation about making contact with students. I know our support staff has really kind of rallied to distribute devices, but also to call and contact those students who haven't been engaged. And again, a lot of them have to do with devices, but some of it is just, the message didn't go out in terms of it being mandatory for them to continue to be engaged, for example, or other people who now have no phone and no other way to contact them. So those people, we're again struggling to figure out how we're going to communicate with them and get them engaged in the process. So it's been quite a few different things. I think to say that we're overwhelmed is an understatement, but at the same time, we are, we're moving along. I think we're definitely looking at this from an equity lens. And so when we talk about like our grade level projects or our senior portfolio in defense, that's definitely one of the pieces of conversation is, how can we proceed while making it equitable for kids who aren't connected yet because, for whatever reason, but they're not quite yet there. So.
Ruben or others, I'm wondering if you could actually speak to that a little bit more, sort of how you're working, within your pathway teams to think about how you want to deliver either projects that were underway or planned for this, last part of the school year, how you're thinking about those capstone projects and defenses. Are you guys going to do them, and are you going to do them virtually? So what's some of the current thinking about that?
So we have hosted 2 Zoom meetings so far on that specific topic. So we, brought our entire staff in. So we're a school-wide pathway in patient care at the moment. And so we brought everybody in, and then we broke them off into grade level teams and really just kind of gave them an opportunity to kick that question around. Really is about where are we at right now with our projects? What are some reasonable next steps? What can we still manage and do? And what are some things that are just beyond our grasp at the moment? And so our teachers have engaged in that process. We've not yet made any decisions. But I will tell you that, a lot of the conversation has to do with tabling some of these things or suspending them for the time being. I know that we typically host student-led conferences in the fall and in the spring, and we've suspended our student-led conferences at this point just because we felt like that was beyond our bandwidth. But it's an ongoing conversation. We definitely don't want to make that decision for our staff. We want them to participate and come so that we come to consensus. We've talked about pivoting to something more of a reflection based on what work has been done to this point, as opposed to just an all-out showcase event that we would typically do at the end of a grade level project, for example.
Thank you.
Can I follow up, Ruben, on that with you? Do you feel like that you are, is that something that you are just figuring out at your site school-wise? Do you think, to what extent do you coordinate those kind of questions and figuring that out with district staff, district link learning staff, or kind of the larger system?
Well, I know that we definitely are figuring this out as we go along with our partners. And so we've obviously gotten some directions from our local district administrators, and Brian and Farhad have both sat in on some of our meetings as well and have supported our work. But they're in probably the same boat as we are, which is a ton of Zoom calls to try to figure out what our next steps are. And so I think it's still early on. For us, we are getting to, at the end of this week, our spring break. And so I think we're definitely in a survival mode at the moment and say, hey, let's just get to that break and then use that break to really flesh out some of these ideas that we've had, and then put those structures in place so that when we start back up after spring break, we're a little bit more organized and we have more kids who are engaged. That's really what the game plan is. Our kids basically go to a break on Friday. They start their break Friday. So we'll have 6 school days to use to kind of reset.
Thank you. I'd love to hear from another district on how that same question of how you're thinking about that. We have folks from Long Beach here, as well as the folks from Antelope Valley, San Bernardino. I'd like to hear kind of on that same question, sort of how you're thinking about that, or if or be honest, like if you're thinking, well, we're just not there yet. Hear that too.
Dan, it looks like Stephanie has a question.
Okay, Stephanie.
Hi, everybody. I'm Stephanie Heilig. I'm the pathway coordinator at Millikan High School in Long Beach Unified. And it's my first year as a pathway coordinator, so I'm coming in a little bit differently. A lot of the questions that were brought up, we don't have answers to yet. We don't know if the school year is going to be finished. We don't know if we're going to come back. So I think a lot of these big projects and things like that are on hold until we know and we have some clarity. We're large as well. So it's really hard to say for sure if all of our kids do have, not only internet access, do they have Chromebooks, do they have a way to get on? And without, 100% certainty, it's really hard to assess grades and learning. So one of the things that we're really talking about at our school site is emphasizing some of those soft skills like communication, relationships, empathy, and really kind of looking at that in terms of no matter what job or career you go into, you're probably going to need some of those skills. And so tapping into some of those teachers, looking at the lessons that they may have and sharing those, no matter which pathway you're in, do we have anything that can really begin to foster that with our own students? And so that from a student aspect is great. And then I think just from a teacher aspect, one of our focuses is really challenging teachers to kind of grow digitally. For a lot of them, this is new, just this element is difficult. Creating online lessons. Some instructors haven't even done Google Classrooms. So at the end of this, looking at this is a really big avenue to push not only students, but teachers as well, and really taking care of those teachers and fostering that. I think that's kind of our basic level where we're all coming in, and I think it unifies us because I think it was Vince that mentioned, I'm a parent, I have kids at home, and trying to get work done and trying to get them to, be on top of their work provides a challenge. But I think if we think a little bit broader and not so narrow, it could help a little bit. And I'm interested just to see if other teachers have resources that are out there that could kind of develop not only with each other, but with students as well, because I think that'd be really great.
Betsy McKinstry, you want to chime in? Thank you, Stephanie.
So 2 things. One is that we are still moving ahead with our senior defense, but we have had to look at it very differently. So 2 of the things that we're looking at is how do students take only one of the elements of our GSP and present it in an online instruction, in online setting. The way that we did our senior defenses was we had 8 students per teacher in the academy. And so instead of now all of those students being facilitated by the senior teacher, since those students, each teacher had 8 students, we kind of felt that each teacher could actually coordinate the efforts for 8 students individually to do their senior project for their mentor teacher online. So, so I think that the challenge that, there's continuity too that we have to address that students want as well, and so do teachers. So we have been doing those things. I do have to give a shout out to my team, who's Duane, and I think Diane's also probably on here, because, and as well as our great Ed Services team for our district, we really hit the ground running in the fact that the very first week, Ed Services worked on what the resources would be. They set up an Ed Central website to be a help desk for resources. They developed a professional development calendar for beginners, intermediates, and people that were proficient. They identified people within the district that have a very high level. If they were instructional coaches, many of them were in our Link Learning academies or Link Learning coordinators, and they're running those sessions as well. And then Duane and Diane and I divided up our industry sectors per each coordinator or each admin person. And we set up a Google Classroom for each industry sector. And we've been meeting with the industry sector teachers. So Duane meeting with the engineering teachers, me meeting with ag and business, Diane meeting with the health science and public service. And we've added resources, common resources to those Google Classrooms, as well as then content area resources for them to use. And so, yeah, so I think the students this week, the teachers had to, they still had to kind of be online, develop their lesson plans, get professional development, that type of thing. And then next week, the students come and will be in their classrooms. We've been giving out Chromebooks as well, and food and basics as well. And I think to Rebecca's point, just the parallel of the basic needs also for teachers, you know, very concerned about what some of you have mentioned. You're dealing with kids at home. You might be dealing with a spouse or somebody else in your family that also is at a high health risk, you know, and the uncertainty of it all. And then your own self-assessment of where you really are proficient and not, you know, proficient. So yeah, so those are some of the things that we've done as far as moving forward.
Great, thanks, Betsy. And I know noticed that Sarah Vielma had your hand raised. It's down now, but I just wanted to give you the opportunity if you wanted Sarah to.
Sure, sure, Dan. This is Sarah Vielma from San Diego. Sorry, my voice is a little bit hoarse. So I'll share a little bit, though, about what we have been doing here in San Diego Unified. I'm the Director for College, Career, and Technical Education. Our district actually set up a plan that we would return to full implementation of distance learning on April 27th. We come back from spring break at the end of this week. And so we have actually been meeting in different teams to kind of address all of the different needs. So we have a technology team, and then a curriculum content team, and a community resources team. So we've been preparing to then roll out the distance learning plan when teachers return. One of the things that our district is doing is a different type of 3 different models. And so recognizing that some instructors will be more advanced in delivering distance learning, where some instructors may be more on the basic level. So trying to set up different models for each of those levels. So we have 3 different levels: an emerging level, a developing level, and an accomplishing level. So just as an example, the emerging level will be district created content. Instructors could use district created content. What I did with our college, career, and technical education team and instructors is we set up very early on Google folders for every course that we had that were shared amongst all of our teachers. So that way they could upload project ideas, lesson ideas into those folders and share them easily. So that's been helpful for us. What we've also done is set up, similar to what Betsy was saying, we've set up Zoom meetings with each industry sector. We have resource teachers that the industry sectors are divided up with. So we've been meeting as teams just to, you know, ease some questions and be able to help prepare our teachers for coming back. When they come back April 6th, the distance learning will still be for enrichment in order to give us time to make sure that everybody has a device. So the district is committed to making sure that everybody has a device and connectivity, so that starting April 27th, we can actually be working towards grades and credit. We also have our own website. One of the other things that's been helping is we have a learning management system. And so in Canvas, we're able to create modules that can then be exported, and then teachers can actually import them. One of the things that I've encouraged our team is to really just think a little differently around these next, for us, it'll be about 6 weeks of instruction that is counting towards grades and credit, and to just really think about how can we really redesign a project and really create a project that is meaningful for those students to engage with during those 6 weeks. So using a combination of all of the resources that are out there, but also just trying to think really creatively about what could be a really meaningful and engaging project for students, understanding that, you know, we're going through different times and they're going to be experiencing all different things, and have different needs. One of the other things I would mention is on scheduling. So we did spend time trying to put together a sample schedule that schools could use, thinking about how could we ensure that students don't have to choose between courses that might be offered. You know, teachers might be offering a video conference at the same time. So we're recommending, like for example, periods 1, 2, and 3 meet Monday and Wednesday during the morning times and have specific times for those types of opportunities for them to interact with teachers. And then also just reminding our teachers that that time that they're interacting with students, you know, remembering to focus on the relationships and connection with students, because that's also a great need right now during this time.
And so that, just because of that, and that's a time then when they would be not only with the teacher, but then they can be interacting with each other, right? Sort of as a class.
Exactly, correct. Yeah, so we could offer student to student interactions, student with teacher interactions. And then we're encouraging our teachers, if they do lessons that are delivered through video conferencing, that they record it so that students could watch it at other times. There are a lot of different elements to think about as far as, you know, just child protections and things like that during the video conferencing, but we're thinking about all of those things as well.
Mm-hmm. Love to hear if it looks like from Tulare Kings. I don't know if that's Joy, but if that is Joy or somebody from Tulare Kings, if you want to jump in.
Yeah, real quick. I just want to give a shout out to Link Learning, you know, and the work that so many of us have been doing for so many years. Me just recently, you know, 6 years in this, but our Link Learning Academies are really thriving, and it's exciting to see how prepared so many of them were. With the tools and with this mindset of collaboration with other students and connecting outside of themselves. So thank you. I just wanted to speak from a small rural schools perspective very quickly. We have 12 rural schools in our network. And I so appreciated your question, Dan, about who is taking care of what. And it's a great question because there's so many things going on. And I do, I facilitate and I have the pleasure of being the director for our 12 district collaborative. And so we've really mobilized counselors and work-based learning coordinators. And I just wanted to mention that piece of it. Our teachers need a great deal of support. And we've really concentrated on the counselors these past 2 weeks. There's a group called Coalesce. It's a county office group that has some amazing resources for counselors, and happy to pass that on to Dan and post wherever. Our counselors are going to be critical. They're the ones that watch our students on this educational journey in addition to our linked learning teachers. So we're really getting a lot of appreciation and tremendous information from our counselors, because as you know, there's going to be some guidance coming out in the next few days from CDE on meeting and how everything. We just got an announcement from UC this morning about how they're going to deal with AP grades, and I think it's so important that we stay up on that information. And how do we? And I think about Vince and your comments just are so awesome, and I see how can we get that information, you know, from the top level of government down to the most precious resource we have, our teachers who serve our students, right? So mobilizing your counselors, getting them connected in other networks, and then our work-based learning coordinators work tomorrow. They're anxious to get together They want to do something, they want to contribute, but they don't know how. And so we're really talking about how we can do that, and just would love to continue the conversation after today about how we're mobilizing work-based learning coordinators and that sort of thing. Thank you.
Thanks, Joy. I mean, those are great comments, and just that focus on really we need to kind of keep it all together. We can't feel like it's all on us to individually to figure this out, and figuring out how to engage the counselors and everybody else. So Ronald, do you want to jump in?
Hello, y'all. I am a Link Learning Pathway Coordinator at Lakewood High School and Long Beach Unified School District. Building upon what was said earlier, yeah, we're all in it together. And that's what we're trying to leverage also is our pathway communities. So we have around 120 teachers on campus. They're delivering instruction via Classroom, Google Classroom. And it is for an enrichment type setting right now, as I think everybody looks to the future and seeing what that might look like. But what we found is like in all of our small learning communities, all in our pathways, we have a group of professionals that are actually working together. So when we talk about different entry levels into this technology game and the digital learning, what we found is by taking that 120, just like what we do with our students and creating these small learning communities, we're creating these small learning professional communities where they're actually helping each other out. So we're building upon those experiences and using all the resources associated within that pathway to help each other out. So it's been looking at this as just a springboard for equity and access, and seeing how we're creating a network to support future learning that happens outside of the school day is unfounded. And looking at the future of what we're going to be able to do and the necessity to do it now is going to give all of our students such an incredible, enriching experience, and they'll appreciate it, I guess, down the road. But right now, I think this, the challenges of change and uneasiness, I think we're feeling by all. But yeah, just building upon that pathway structure, we are also dealing with the issues of equity and access, finding out who has and who doesn't. And we're actually leveraging that pathway system for those students that haven't checked in on a classroom, Google Classroom. So we're starting these intervention lists so we can reach out and actually, okay, email isn't working for them. So it might be a technology issue. So we'll get the phone banks going and reach out to them as well. So by hook or by crook, we bring them back into the fold and we continue education.
I just had a quick question for folks. Appreciate those comments. I'm wondering, some folks mentioned that they're meeting with their teachers by industry sector, and I was actually curious whether any of you are directly engaging with your industry partners right now, or even with your post-secondary partners around dual enrollment classes, what's happened to those. Just kind of curious about some of the work you're doing with folks outside of your, outside of those schools.
Renita, one thing that I was able to do was actually, we have some late adopters in terms of the pathway program. And looking at the industry sectors, and our industry sectors happen to be healthcare and technology and arts, media, entertainment, and this science-based research. And when they look at, those teachers that were reluctant to join into this pathway, I guess, parade, they realize the application of what they're doing. And in times like this, pointing out all of the things that we're teaching our students are preparing for the unanswered questions of tomorrow. When we talk about, our students will have jobs that we don't know about even existing tomorrow. Well, tomorrow is today. And because of what we're preparing them for, they're actually able to contribute and to actually help out in that manner.
Yeah, I think and just having a strong pathway, this is where you can really leverage that strength in a time like this. So Diane, do you want to chime in? Diane, I think you're on mute. Thanks. Oh.
There we go. Finally did it. Diane Walker. I'm with the Antelope Valley Union High School District as well. And we've been blessed not only by industry partners like Northrop Grumman and Lockheed Martin reaching out to us to ask affirmatively, how can we help? Can we help provide technology, whether it's hotspots or laptops? Also creating virtual resources for us to share, whether it's videos, classroom visits, and so forth. Those are all in the works at this point. But also asking if they can donate money to help fund more meals for students and families. Like Rebecca mentioned, that's a great way to involve them, and they're wonderful about doing that. Duane could also tell you a little bit more about a task force in our area where they're working to prototype and create donations of personal protective equipment for hospitals and healthcare providers and first responders. Our first responder teachers are working in the community to help relieve the staff shortages for law enforcement and so forth. And so it's really been able to bring a lot of those industry partners with at least some small connection starting out and determining how that can happen going forward. And then additionally, we have our Career Prep Council, which meets every other month, which is industry and education focused. And we are going to go ahead and hold that meeting virtually next week so that we can at least give our industry partners and post-secondary partners an update on what's happening, where we're at, what challenges we have. And as far as dual enrollment and articulation, we're working with our community college to see what processes are going forward as far as articulation. With dual enrollment, it was actually fairly easy, knock on wood, so far as being flexible in having our classes be online because their classes are online, and there's a lot more flexibility with that right now. We were in the midst of recruiting for our fall classes for dual enrollment. And we just created a Google form application that they're going to accept as digitally signed and move ahead with that. Just extended the deadline a bit, and we'll keep going with that. And for those of you who have not somehow gotten this resource, the Career Ladders Project is offering webinars for the next 3 Thursdays at 10 o'clock in the morning about going online with dual enrollment. So Naomi Castro with CLP is a great resource for that, and you can contact her.
Hey, Dan, if you don't mind, can I piggyback what Diane was saying?
Sure.
Some of our industry partners, NASA, from Edwards Air Force Base, and Lockheed Martin, they reached out to us, as Diane mentioned, the city of Lancaster. We have 2 hospitals here, Antelope Valley Hospital and Palmdale Regional Medical Center. They reached out to us as a school district, not just in the relationship of industry partners, but also they knew, or they were inquiring what type of equipment we had. So they knew we had 3D printers, so they wanted to know what type of 3D printers we had, so we can join with the city on creating our own N95 mask. We have one of our engineering teachers that's on the Facebook discussion board, and some NASA engineers are on there as well, and they are discussing and sharing files with our engineering teachers regarding the shields that they're going to use. On Friday, they're going to deliver a prototype to the hospital, and we may be involved with that because they're going to use one of our laser cutters to cut the magnetic strip to be used with the respiratory hood that they just designed. So that was even just from NASA reaching out just for resources that they knew we had and wanted our teachers to participate in. We also have at Lockheed Martin, they provided a webinar at 10 o'clock this morning with a guest speaker of a flight instructor from the base. So they invited all of our drone teams to participate in that webinar. So those are the type of things that we're still getting involved with, even though it's virtually. We are having an opportunity for Lockheed Martin just reaching out to us, wanting to provide guest speakers virtually to our engineering students.
Wow. Yeah, that's great. That's a great, thanks for sharing that, Duane. That's a great story. Cindy Bader, do you want to jump in? You next.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, when the questions around the business partners and what is going on, we've spent a lot of time just at the district getting all of our teachers online and into their learning opportunities. I've had a lot of conversations with our business partners. We had a meeting with the Aerospace Council. Truthfully, in Long Beach, with a lot of small businesses, they're all reeling right now in terms of their own space, right? They don't even know, they don't know from day to day who's going to be working, what they're going to be doing. So we're in conversations, but they really, like our Port of Long Beach, a strong partner. Nobody here in Long Beach knows what's going to be happening and what they are going to be able to do there. So we're in contact with them all, but just in terms of what is actually going to be able to happen. We have virtual guest speaking. We have those opportunities being set up as best as possible. But we have found our businesses they're reeling just a little bit. We do have a school. One of our schools is looking at perhaps helping with 3D printing of masks, and so that's a project that the students will design, and we're about to reach out to our public health folks around that. But that's about what's happening for us.
Great. Thank you, Cindy. Lindsay Corcoran, want to share what's going on in LA?
Hi, everyone. This has been really great and inspiring to hear what all the other districts are doing. So thank you for sharing. I think as Ruben and some of our teachers shared, as being such a large district, we've really been spending the last couple weeks just trying to figure it all out. We had a great meeting with our partner districts on the LA Regional Link Learning Coalition right at the beginning of the closure to share resources across our districts. And that was really helpful to start to get the ball rolling around resources particularly developed for specific industry sectors. So we've been sharing those out with our schools. In addition to that, our district has spent the majority of this week where teachers are in 2 hours of PD a day, while also teaching all of their classes. So we know that they're super slammed and very busy, but a couple of the professional development opportunities we were able to add to the district-wide menu. One of those is on virtual presentations and how to adapt an in-person presentation to a virtual one. And we're hoping to build on that. And I know we're going to build on that for virtual portfolio defense after the spring break. And then we've also partnered with NEPRIS. And I heard NEPRIS mentioned at the beginning of the call. And NEPRIS has actually created a module for our teachers as well, a 2-hour training on how to invite professionals into the virtual space. And so many of our teachers across the district, both link learning and non-link learning, are able to access these trainings. The big piece of the last couple weeks was figuring out staff development for 40,000 teachers. So that's where the majority of our time went coming into this week. And after the break, and we've also been we're in the middle of onboarding 10 new pathways for next year. So our team has also been redesigning and redeveloping the onboarding process, which was typically 40 hours of professional development in person to an online onboarding process. And so we're going to be launching that in late April as well. And like other districts, we've also set up Zoom conference calls with our CTE sectors. All the different industry sectors now have a school. We use Schoology, not Google Classroom in our district, but the CTE department with us has set up a different Schoology accounts for every CTE teacher in different industry sectors. And last, we really did want to, we know our school leaders are completely inundated trying to figure out how to serve food to kids, how to get resources, laptops to kids, all of that high needs just normal needs that we need to do to get school up and running. And so just a couple of days ago, we had a call with all of our Link Learning principals, and we've since created like a network of Link Learning principals. So then we'll have those calls every 2 weeks so we can hear what's going on and how do we plug some of the holes that are coming up for our site leaders as they move through this process, likely for the long term.
Dan, I just wanted to jump in really quickly and let people know if they haven't been following the chat, there are lots of resources and comments in there for you to read through and some links that folks have posted. So please do take a look there. And I think we have probably time for about one more question.
Yeah, and also with the conversations in the chat, we'll follow up on those and make sure those questions get answered for you or addressed after this if they don't get addressed here. All right, let's see. Carrie, do you want to jump in?
Sure, yeah. I wanted to just kind of echo a little bit of what Lindsay was sharing and then follow up on what Cindy shared from kind of that curricular standpoint and also just kind of thinking about supporting instruction in Long Beach, what we're developing and how we're trying to support our students and our teachers and our community and our parents and all of those stakeholders right now. So very common theme to what I've heard from many of our other districts here, that first push over the last 2 weeks has very much been about meeting basic needs of students in terms of food and technology. We are at a point now where we believe we have mostly saturated our student population with Chromebooks. We believe we're really close to that tipping point of all of them having Chromebooks distributed, which will support online instruction. We know we have more to go. The data is showing and our numbers are showing that we're getting quite close. We continue to have meal distribution at several of our sites, and during that meal distribution, we do have hard copy packets being provided centrally from our curriculum office, as well as any additional materials that site teachers might be adding to that, able to be picked up at all of our open sites that are doing meal distribution as a basic covering of basic instruction. We're in a really basic instruction place right now and beginning to build capacity in our teachers. We have centralized Google Classrooms that are teacher and principal facing, that are developed out of our curriculum offices, that have kind of a general guide of where we might be curricularly and resources that can be accessed and could be copied into personal Google Classrooms from all of our teachers. We are providing an extraordinary amount of technology support to our individual teachers right now to get them capable of even thinking about what our next layers of instruction might look like. Starting with, get a classroom up, here is how you function in classroom, here is what docs is, here is forms, here's how you might grade. So we have currently last week 16, this week 21, more next week, webinars being held out of our central technology, well, it's out of the curriculum office, anchored currently by our curriculum leaders and ed tech coordinators. They've been well attended for us. We're having around 200 teachers a session, which is big for us. We've, I think, hit somewhere around 15 to 1600 of our teachers, many of them multiple attendees on our webinars. We just launched a peer-to-peer digital mentor program where we're trying to take some of our high flyers and on the back end match them to teachers who may be novice to technology. We're launching that program this week. We also have created, on our website, a home learning landing page with a ton of resources, some of which do begin to help us think about connecting to industry. But it's real low level right now. So I guess I wanted to share that we're really in Long Beach with one more full week to go before we hit our spring break. Our goal in this first 3 weeks of kind of switching to this new form of learning opportunities and providing education for our kids has been all about, oh, you're gonna hear the voice of my 3-year-old. Hold on, bub. It has been all about building the capacity and the foundational skills from which to build an instructional model. It's been all about build G Suite, build an understanding. What are our resources? How do we reach kids? How do we build capacity in teachers who have not engaged in technology thus far to the extent that they may need to now? And then I know that an after spring break goal is, and now how, once we can have a reasonable assurance of reaching our teachers and our students, might we layer in the additional pieces? I'm going to go off video. He's very interested in what's happening on the screen. Anyways, I just wanted to just chime in and echo that that's very much where we are, basic needs of a lot of our stakeholders while we think about and how do we make the rest of that system run.
All right. I just want to keep in mind the time, and we'd said 2 o'clock. Happy to go a little long for those of you who can stay on or want to stay on. We've got a couple more hand raised, so I'd love to give them the opportunity to get their thoughts in. So we have Annetta is up next. Annetta, I don't know, you're muted.
Sorry about that. Okay, Annetta from Long Beach. I just wanted to follow up with what Carrie was saying. We are also looking at the student element, the student support element. So there are Instagram and tweets going out directly to our Long Beach community, helping them feel connected. So it's our deputy superintendent and Dr. Tiffany Brown, who is speaking directly to our student population. So in addition to all the wonderful things Carrie has already said, we are really looking at making our kids feel like they're connected to the community, they're safe, and that we have these resources for them.
Great, thank you. Kenneth, I'd love to hear from you. You're up next.
Thank you, Dan. I want to reiterate, but then also sort of explain the importance of gaining an understanding of what the teachers need, especially upon returning immediately from spring break. We returned this past Monday after a 2-week break. Our teachers did not know that they would not have students until the Friday they left for break. And so it took very much an all hands on deck approach to planning, from the unions to classified to you name it, support staff. Everybody had to be on deck because you just don't know what you're going to forget. You know what? Yesterday we had several dozen custodial staff using wipes to wipe down Chromebooks, because over the next 4 days we're distributing them, and we must distribute them in a way that keeps students away from each other. And so it's really important to include all stakeholders in that conversation. That's all I wanted to share. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Kenneth. I appreciate that. So that's, I'm going to wrap things up now. I would like to say, first of all, thank you. This has really been a great conversation. I think, again, as I said at the beginning, just to hear it's such a new territory. So to hear what we're all doing, how we're thinking about it, I think, frankly, it's kind of comforting, as well as being informative. And we'd like to invite you to leave comments if there's things kind of left unsaid, questions you still have. I mean, we are going to be, this is just the beginning of other conversations, more targeted perhaps, because there are topics we didn't get to that we wanted to get to in the area of student supports, work-based learning, and there's lots of other stuff we could talk about with curriculum. And we would like to get there, maybe get there again in a more targeted way. And so we'd love to hear from you, your comments in the box about what more you'd like to hear. And also, we want to create networking opportunities for you. So if you heard something, met somebody here that you think you would like to engage with more, let us know that too, and we'll try to help facilitate those conversations. And Renita, is there anything else you want to add that you think I've missed?
No, except that, we'll be planning some additional virtual meetings and webinars over the next few weeks. So stay tuned, because we want to continue these conversations and make sure you all have access to each other as resources.
Yeah. So great. Again, thank you so much. This has really been inspiring. And again, we will leave the chat box open for a couple more minutes for you to kind of add anything, any follow-up you'd like to see.